Hello everyone, and welcome to our first Healing Heart to Heart. This is Johnathan Dobbs. He's the minister at the Aztec Church of Christ. In addition to being a minister, Johnathan does pastoral counseling and is working towards being a licensed marriage and family therapist. Johnathan, will you please share some of your thoughts about healing from grief and tragedy?
Well, this week we've dealt with quite a bit as far as kids that they're hurting on so many levels. The despair has set in for a lot of kids. The fear of it's an irrational fear, even that the unknown, what's coming up next, could this happen again? Some of that stuff is rational, but some of it, even though the shooters no longer with us, there's still that fear of what are we going to deal with when we get back to school. But what I'm hearing a lot lately is young people that are holed up in their rooms. They don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to come out and try to process. They're just not ready to process anything yet. And the best advice that I could give at that time actually comes from the oldest story in the Bible, and it's the story of Job. And Job was this wonderful man who Satan came in and took out his property, took his livestock, took his children, killed his children, and took away his health, covered all over his body with sores. And so he was utterly distraught, and he sat on an ash heap covered in sackcloth and was mourning what was happening. And he had 3 friends that came to visit him, and those 3 friends, when they got to him, they saw him in his utter grief, and they joined in with him sitting on the ash heap. And they sat with him. For 7 days, they sat with him, and they didn't say a word. Not one word. You would think that they would come in and they would immediately want to start fixing the problems, and later on they would start saying some stuff, and some of the stuff was okay, and some of it was just foolish. But for those 7 days, Job's 3 friends got it right. He didn't need them to come in and solve his problems because they couldn't do it. They didn't understand what he had gone through. They hadn't experienced that before. And for many of us, we weren't in the school when the shooting happened. We can't fully comprehend what these kids have dealt with, having been in the fray of the chaos that happened that day. And so what we can do is we can join with them, and we can sit and we can tell them we love them. We can wrap our arms around them. We can let them just cry. Just sit there in silence and assure them that they are welcome, that they are loved, that they are accepted, that there's not going to be any repercussions to the emotions that they're dealing with. They're dealing with hurt and anger and fear and frustration and confusion, and all of those things are absolutely normal for people that have gone through such a traumatic time as they're going through right now. And so what do? The first thing we need to do is we need to be patient and love them even in silence. And so for some of us, that's really hard. I'm a talker. I like to talk things out. I like to fix problems. And so if I have to sit with somebody and not say anything, that's often difficult. But it's important because they need to have the time to let things settle down enough that they'll feel comfortable beginning to express what they've got going on. A lot of these kids are still categorizing. I'm afraid, I'm confused, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm all of those things all at once, and I can't deal with all of it all at once, so I need to settle down and get one thing at a time that I can put my finger on. And then they'll start expressing those things. And they may act out. They may do all kinds of things. We don't know. Most of us in this community have never dealt with the kind of trauma, the kind of horror that these kids have dealt with this last week. And so patience is key to what we are going to do to help them engage in the future. So if you're a parent and you have a child who is retreated back into their shell, and they don't want to come out of their room. They don't even want to come to eat. They're saying, I'm never going back to that school. All these things. Instead of trying to correct them right now, just wrap your arms around them and love them and tell them that you accept them, that it's okay to feel all those things that they're feeling. And as you do that, and as they feel welcome, as they feel accepted, then they will feel more secure in being able to come out of that shell again, in order to step forward and begin the healing process. So for a lot of these kids, the greatest thing that you can do right now is maybe you go sit on their bed right next to them, and you don't say a word, you don't do anything, you just sit there until they say, "What are you doing here?" and when they say, "What are you doing here?" you just say, "I just don't want you to be alone. I don't want you ever to be alone. And I want you to know I'm always here with you." And when they get that, then they'll begin to look to you and to reach out to you and to talk to you about all the things that are hurting inside of them. This is not going to be something that's going to happen quickly. These kids, their lives have been utterly changed by the events of December 7th. And so what we're talking about right now is just first steps. First thing you can do, let them know you love them. Let them know you're there, and you will always be there, and nothing they do in reaction to any of this stuff is going to cause you not to love them and accept them and want to be there for them. That's the most important right now. God bless you guys, and I'm praying for you, and if there's anything that I can do, if you guys need to come talk to me about anything, then come see me, and or find somebody else. Go talk to somebody, because sometimes you're dealing with as much stuff as your kids are dealing with, and they just aren't as mature as you are, and maybe they don't have the connections that you have, or maybe you didn't know that you had a connection, and now you do. So maybe you'll come and find some help too. All I know is that all of us here in Aztec, we've got to stick with one another. We've got to lean on one another, because when we're alone, it's a lot easier to slink back into the depression and the frustration and the hurt. But when we're together, we find strength. We find strength in numbers. God bless you guys.
Thank you, Johnathan. Thank you for that beautiful sharing, heart to heart.